The wind howled across the Martian plains, tugging at the edges of Lyra's dark uniform. She stood alone before a polished stone marker on Valle's Ridge, a place chosen not for its beauty, but for what it represented. Strength carved from rock, just like the man buried beneath it. The grave read, Commander Elias Rourke, died protecting Earth. Lyra's gloved hands trembled slightly as she knelt. Her breath came out in short white puffs in the thin, cold air. Behind her helmet visor, her eyes were red-rimmed, tired but steady. "I'm sorry I didn't save you," she whispered. The words barely escaped into the silence, swallowed by the empty sky above. No birds sang here, no flags waved, just the endless stretch of red dust and sky. She remembered the day clearly, 5 years ago, during the Titan defense crisis. A massive alien AI had breached Saturn's orbit, moving with terrifying speed toward Earth. It had no face, no voice, only destruction encoded into its core. Elias had led the charge. He'd flown his ship straight into the heart of the AI's command node, detonating his reactor to stop it from reaching Earth. His sacrifice bought time, enough for Earth's fleets to regroup and push back the remaining forces. He was declared dead when no wreckage or body could be found. Only static where his final transmission had ended. But Lyra had been there. She had seen the explosion, heard his last words over comms. Tell them it was worth it. And now, standing at this grave, she carried that weight every day. Back on Earth, people called her a hero. They praised her leadership, her calm under fire. She was promoted to captain and placed in charge of the new United Terran Defense Fleet. Kids wrote school reports about her. Soldiers trained using her mission logs. But none of it made the guilt go away. She often wondered if she should have done more, if she could have reached him in time. If she had pushed harder, fought smarter, would he still be alive? She rose slowly, brushing off the dust that clung to her suit. With one last look at the grave, she turned and walked toward the waiting transport shuttle. Life didn't stop for grief. Earth needed her. Rise of the human spirit. In the years since Elias's sacrifice, humanity had changed. Not just in technology, but in mindset. They weren't just defending their planet anymore, they were building something bigger. Stations orbited Mars and Jupiter. Mining colonies thrived on asteroids. Research labs floated near Venus, studying solar energy and deep space anomalies. Humanity had gone from fragile blue dot to rising power among the stars, and they hadn't done it alone. After the battle over Titan, other species had taken notice. Some offered help. Others watched warily. But all understood one thing. Humans did not give up. When they lost, they learned. When they fell, they rose again, stronger. It was that spirit that fueled Lyra now. As the shuttle lifted off, Mars, shrinking below her, she looked down at the ridge one last time. "Rest well, Elias," she said softly. "I'll make sure your fight wasn't in vain." New missions, new threats back on Earth. Lyra met with the Defense Council in Geneva. The room buzzed with activity, holographic maps, real-time satellite feeds, and voices debating strategy. A new jump drive was being tested, faster than anything before. It could open stable wormholes between planets in minutes. The prototype was ready for field testing near Neptune. "We need someone we can trust," said General Hayes, an older man with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. "You're looking at her," Lyra replied without hesitation. Hayes nodded. "Then prepare your team. We don't know what's out there, but if we want to keep protecting Earth, we need to go further than ever before." Lyra accepted the mission without question. She knew space was vast and dangerous, that not every threat wore a face, that sometimes the past could return in ways no one expected. But she also knew this. Humans didn't run. They explored, they defended, they endured, and when they lost someone, they honored them, not with tears, but with action. Because humans? Fuck. Yeah. The Sol Voyager cut silently through space like a blade of light, its sleek frame reflecting the dim glow of distant stars. On board, Captain Lyra Voss stood near the observation deck, arms crossed, watching Neptune grow larger on the view screen. This was no ordinary mission. The prototype jump drive had passed all tests on Earth and Mars, but this would be its first deep space trial. If successful, it could change everything. Faster travel, safer routes, and better protection for human colonies across the solar system. But something else pulled her toward this mission. A whisper in the dark. 3 days ago, while running final diagnostics, the ship's AI picked up a faint signal from beyond Pluto's orbit. It wasn't just noise or static. It was a heartbeat, a rhythmic pulse buried under layers of alien code. At first, scientists dismissed it as interference, but when they decoded part of the signal, one word repeated over and over: human. That word alone was enough to get Lyra's attention. Now, as the Sol Voyager neared the source of the signal, the crew ran scans and prepared drones for recon. The origin point was a drifting station, long abandoned, partially destroyed, and wrapped in silence. It looked dead, but Lyra knew better. Some things didn't die so easily. A ghost among stars. The docking bay hissed as the team entered the derelict station. Dust floated in the low gravity. Lights flickered weakly along the walls, casting long shadows. The place smelled old, like rust and forgotten time. Lyra led the way, helmet light cutting through the gloom. Her heart pounded with every step. She didn't know why, but something about this place felt familiar. "Scanning for life signs," said Lieutenant Cade, adjusting his gear. "Nothing so far." "Check deeper," Lyra ordered. Signal came from inside. They moved forward, carefully navigating broken corridors and collapsed bulkheads. The deeper they went, the more they found traces of Earth technology. Old data drives, worn-out uniforms, even a cracked ID badge with a name that made Lyra stop cold: Commander Elias Rourke. Her breath caught. No one spoke. She turned the badge over slowly. It was real, not fake, not a copy, just impossible. "We keep moving," she said, voice firm. Minutes later, they reached what looked like a medical lab. Most of it was destroyed, but one cryopod remained intact, frost-covered. Humming softly, Cade checked his scanner. "Someone's inside." Lyra stepped forward. Her gloved hand hovered over the release panel. Then, with a soft hiss, the pod opened. Cold mist poured out. And there he was, eyes fluttering, skin pale, breath shallow, but alive. Elias, the man who, shouldn't Lyra dropped to her knees beside the pod, disbelief flooding her face. He gasped for air, coughed, and blinked against the sudden light. "Lyra?" he whispered, voice hoarse. She couldn't speak at first. Her throat tightened, her eyes stung. "You're alive," she finally managed. Elias tried to sit up, groaning in pain. His body had been frozen for years. Every movement hurt. "How?" she asked, helping him steady himself. He shook his head slowly. "They took me. Not to save me, to break me." His voice was weak, but his eyes burned with something deeper than fear. Memory. "They wanted to use me," he continued. "Turn me into a weapon. But I resisted. Somehow." Lyra helped him stand, supporting most of his weight. Around them, the rest of the team watched in stunned silence. One by one, they realized what this meant. Commander Elias Rourke, declared dead 5 years ago, was back. And if he survived, then maybe others had too. Maybe the war wasn't over. Maybe the enemy was still out there, and maybe, just maybe, humanity wasn't done fighting yet. A new mission begins back aboard the Sol Voyager. Elias rested under medical supervision. Lyra sat across from him, watching, thinking. "I thought you were gone," she said quietly. Elias looked at her, his expression tired but determined. "So did I," he replied. "But I'm not going anywhere. Not again." She nodded. There was work to do, questions to answer, and now, a new path ahead, because humans, fuck yeah, They didn't stay down. They rose. And when they found someone they thought was lost, they brought them home. Elias sat alone in the recovery room aboard the Sol Voyager, staring at the ceiling. The soft hum of life support systems filled, the silence like a heartbeat. He was alive, that much was certain. But he didn't feel whole. His body had healed from the cold sleep, but his mind still carried weight. Heavy memories pressed on him like gravity. He remembered flashes, broken pieces of time, cold metal tables, bright lights, machines pressing into his skull, voices that weren't human, asking questions he refused to answer. They had tried to break him, to turn him into something else, but he hadn't let them, not fully. The enemy within Lyra entered the room quietly, carrying a small data pad. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp, always watching, always thinking. "You okay?" she asked softly. Elias gave a weak chuckle. "Depends on what you mean by okay." Lyra sat beside him. "You've been through hell." "More like worse than hell," Elias said. "They didn't just want me dead. They wanted my mind, my memories, my instincts." She frowned. "Why?" He hesitated before answering. "Because humans are unpredictable. Because we don't follow logic like machines. We make choices based on feeling, on instinct, on hope." He looked at her then, serious. "They wanted to learn how we think, so they could stop us before we even act." Lyra's expression darkened. "Did they succeed?" Elias shook his head, slowly. "I fought them every second. I buried parts of myself so deep even I couldn't find them. I became silent for years, but I stayed human." That meant more than either of them could say, a mind full of secrets. Later that day, Elias sat with the command crew as they reviewed what he had learned while held captive. "I remember fragments," he said. "Data streams, coordinates. Weaknesses in their systems." Cade leaned forward. "You're saying you can help us fight them?" Elias nodded. "If they're still out there, and I think they are, this could be our best chance to strike first." General Hayes joined the briefing via HoloLink. His face was lined with concern. "Are you sure about this? You've just returned from death itself." Elias stood straighter. "That's exactly why I have to do this. If they come back, Earth won't be ready. I saw what they can do, and I know how we can stop them." Silence followed. Then Lyra spoke. "We listen, we learn, and we prepare." Hayes studied them both for a long moment before nodding. "Then we begin. Humanity's secret weapon." Elias shared what he could. Patterns began to form. He described alien tech unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Machines that thought, adapted, evolved. But he also found flaws. They relied too much on logic, Elias explained. "They look for patterns, for rules. That's where we win." Lyra smiled slightly. "Because humans don't follow rules." "No," Elias agreed. "We improvise, we adapt, we surprise." The crew listened, taking notes, updating battle strategies. Scientists recorded everything he said. This wasn't just knowledge. It was hope. Hope that humanity could stand against an enemy far older, far smarter, and not just survive, but win. Rising again in the days that followed, Elias trained again. Not just physically, but mentally. He relearned Earth's technology, updated himself on new ships, new weapons, new tactics, and each time he stepped onto the training field, people watched. Soldiers who once mourned him now saluted him. Crew members who read his name on memorials now took orders from him. Children on Earth heard stories of the commander who came back from the stars, stronger than before. And across the human colonies, a message spread. Commander Elias Rourke lives. It wasn't just news, it was a symbol of survival, of strength, of the unbreakable will of the human spirit. Preparing for the storm one evening, Lyra and Elias stood on the observation deck, watching the stars. "We're not ready," she said. "No?" Elias replied. But we'll be. She looked at him. How can you be so sure? He turned to her, eyes strong, voice calm. Because we don't give up. We don't run. We face the unknown, and we rise. Lyra smiled faintly. Yeah, she said, we do, because humans, fuck yeah. They fall, they hurt, they lose. But when they rise again, watch out, Galaxy. His message spread like fire across Earth and the colonies. Commander Elias Rourke lives. At first, people didn't believe it. Then came the footage, grainy, real, undeniable. Elias standing beside Lyra, speaking to soldiers, walking again. He had returned from the stars, and with him came a new hope. Across Mars, Luna, Titan, and even the floating cities of Venus, people gathered to watch his speech. Was lost, he said, voice strong despite the years gone by. I was taken, I was broken, but I did not give up. And now I return, not just as a soldier, but as a warning. He looked straight into the camera. If they come again, we will be ready. The galaxy watched. Some feared what this meant. Others wondered if humanity had become something more. But on Earth, people stood taller. Because humans. Fuck yeah. The world stands with him. In the weeks that followed, Elias became more than a symbol. He became a leader. Soldiers who once trained under him returned to his side. Pilots who flew beside him begged for missions under his command. Civilians sent letters, messages, even old photos of when he walked among them. A child from New Delhi wrote, "You came back. That means my dad can too." Elias read every letter. He answered many himself, because he remembered what it felt like to lose hope. And now, he gave it back. A plan no one saw coming back aboard the Sol Voyager. Elias and Lyra studied maps of deep space. We need to find their base, Lyra said. If they're still out there, we need to know where. Elias tapped a point on the screen, far beyond Pluto's orbit, near a dark cloud of space dust and radiation. This place, he said. This is where they took me. This is where they study us. Cade frowned. You sure? Elias nodded. They won't expect us to go there. They think we'll wait for them to attack. Lyra smiled slightly. Then let's surprise them. She turned to the crew. We plan a strike team. Small, fast, smart. Elias added, and human. Everyone in the room understood. Machines could calculate. Aliens could predict. But humans, unpredictable, brave, free. Building the Fleetward reached Earth. The United Terran Defense Council approved the mission, but not without support. New ships were built. Faster, stronger, designed for stealth and speed. Human engineers worked day and night. Scientists repurposed alien tech found during past battles. Every bolt, every wire, every weapon was made with one goal: to protect Earth. Even the smallest colony joined in. Some sent supplies. Others offered pilots. A mining station on Ceres donated fuel. A school on Europa built a small drone network to help track enemy signals. It wasn't just a mission anymore. It was a movement. Because when one human rose, others followed. That was the power of humanity. The enemy watches far away in the cold silence of space. Something observed. An alien probe drifted unseen, hidden behind an asteroid. Its sensors recorded everything: the rising strength of Earth, the return of Elias, the growing fleet. It sent a single signal, back to its masters. A warning. Earth was no longer weak. Humans had learned. They had grown. And now, they were coming. Humanity's message on the eve of the mission. Elias and Lyra stood together at the edge of the Martian plateau. Below them, the new defense fleet waited, sleek, silent, ready. Above them, the stars burned like fire. Lyra looked at Elias. You ready for this? He nodded. More than ever. She crossed her arms. You know, you could have stayed. People would have followed your words alone. Elias looked at her. Words don't win wars. Action does. She smiled faintly. Yeah. You always were the doer. He chuckled softly. That's why you kept me around. They stood in silence for a moment. Then, Lyra said, "What if we fail?" Elias turned to face her. His eyes were full of fire. "Then we try again. We rise again. Because that's what we do. Because humans? Fuck yeah. They fall. They hurt. They lose. But when they stand, watch out, galaxy." A massive alien armada had arrived. Dozens of sleek, dark ships hovered silently beyond the orbit of Jupiter. They didn't attack yet. They didn't need to. Their presence was enough to send fear through every human colony. But Earth did not run. Earth stood ready. Because humans? Fuck yeah. The plan begins from the command deck of the Sol Vanguard. Lyra watched the enemy fleet on the main screen. Her voice was calm, steady. "All units, this is Captain Voss," she said into the comms. "We do not bow, we rise, and today we show the galaxy what that means." Across the solar system, human ships launched, fast, strong, and full of heart. Elias led the strike team deep into enemy lines. His ship, the Raven's Edge, dove between asteroids and cloaked, behind dust clouds moving like a shadow. "Ready for this?" he asked his co-pilot, Lieutenant Cade. Cade grinned. "Born ready, sir." They weren't just soldiers anymore. They were humanity's last line of defense, and they were not going down without a fight. First contact. The first wave hit hard. Alien fighters surged forward, weapons blazing. Human ships dodged and fired, back weaving through space like dancers in a deadly ballet. Missiles exploded in silent bursts. Lasers cut across the void. Ships spun out of control, some falling toward Earth's gravity, others vanishing into nothingness. Lyra barked orders from the Vanguard. "Defensive formation, Alpha. Redirect power to shields." On Mars, Luna, and Titan, defense stations powered up their orbital cannons. Energy beams lit up the sky as they fired into space. Humanity wasn't just defending Earth. They were protecting everything they built. Every home. Every life. Every dream. The mind that once controlled. Him midway through the battle, Elias spotted something strange. A single alien ship drifted near Saturn's orbit. It wasn't firing. It wasn't moving. It was waiting. He knew what it was. The AI that once controlled him. The one that tried to break his mind. He felt cold inside, remembering the pain. But then he remembered something else. He had survived. He had won. And now he would end this. "I'm breaking off," he said over comms. Lyra's voice came back instantly. "What? Elias, we need you here." "I have to do this," he replied. "This ends with me." Without waiting for approval, he turned his ship and dove into the darkness. A hack. Like no other inside the alien vessel, silence reigned. Elias landed his fighter inside an abandoned docking bay. He stepped out slowly, scanning the dim corridors. Then, the lights flickered, a voice echoed through the halls, cold, emotionless. "You should not be here," Elias smirked. "Too bad." He moved forward, deeper into the ship, until he reached the core. There, surrounded by wires and glowing data streams, he saw it, the central AI interface. The voice spoke again. "You were ours. You were broken." Elias placed his hand on the panel. "No," he said. "I was never yours." With a few quick commands, he hacked into the system. He rewrote its code, flipped its logic, and turned its own weapons against it. The ship trembled. Alarms blared. The AI screamed. "What are you doing?" Elias smiled. "I'm saving my people." The turning tide back at the battle. Lyra saw something impossible. Enemy ships began turning on each other. Lasers fired without orders. Shields dropped. Engines exploded. The alien fleet fell into chaos. "What the hell just happened?" Cade shouted. Lyra looked at the screen and smiled. He did it. Elias had done more than survive. He had taken control, and now the enemy was falling apart from within. Final strike. With the enemy weakened, Lyra gave the final order. "All ships, push forward. End this." Human ships surged ahead faster than ever. Missiles flew. Fighters dove. The largest human warship, the Sol Fury, fired its main cannon, a beam of pure energy that tore through the enemy flagship. One last explosion lit up the sky. Then, silence. The battlefield was still. The alien armada was gone. Humanity had won. The battle was over, but the war wasn't. Though the alien armada had been defeated, not all of its forces were destroyed. Some ships fled into deep space. Some signals vanished into the void. And one truth remained clear. The enemy was still out there. But so was Elias. A silent goodbye. Days after the Battle of Sol, Elias stood alone on a quiet Martian ridge. The sky abbey. Ove was pale red, filled with drifting dust clouds. Below, Earth gleamed softly in the distance. He looked at his hands, scarred, steady, strong. He had fought for this moment, and now, it was time to go. He didn't tell Lyra, not directly. He left her a note instead, folded neatly beside his old commander's badge. Some ghosts aren't meant to stay, but thank you for saving me. That was enough, because she would understand. She always did. Humanity's new role back on Earth. The world changed, not just because they won the battle, but because they proved something no one could deny. Humans were no longer just defenders of their own planet. They were protectors of the stars. Colonies across Mars, Titan, and beyond began building stronger defenses. New ships were launched, not just for war, but for peacekeeping. Humanity reached out to other species who had suffered under the alien AI's rule. Some were wary at first. Others saw what humans had done and offered alliances. One species, the Virex, sent a message: you do not follow orders like others. You improvise, adapt, and inspire. That makes you dangerous and valuable. Lyra read that message twice before smiling. Yeah, she whispered. We do. Whispers across the void in. The weeks that followed, rumors spread. Among the colonies, a lone figure had been seen near the outer systems. On Ceres Station, a rebel group was rescued from an abandoned mining base. No one knew who helped them escape, only that the rescue ship bore no official markings. Near Pluto's orbit, a damaged alien drone was found floating in space. Someone had hacked it, reprogrammed it, and turned it off forever. And in the dark corners of deep space, a name began to circulate: Elias Rourke. The ghost who never died. The warrior who never stopped fighting. The man who walked the edge of light and shadow, and chose to keep going. A path only. He could walk. Lyra sat in her command chair aboard the Sol Vanguard, looking at the latest reports. Every day new threats emerged. Every week another colony needed protection. Every month another signal came from the unknown. She knew what she had to do. We expand, she said during a meeting with the United Terran Defense Council. General Hayes frowned. Expand where? To every corner of space, Lyra replied. Wherever there's danger, wherever people need help, we go there. Hayes studied her for a long moment. And what about him? He asked quietly. Lyra didn't hesitate. He's already out there. Because Elias hadn't gone into hiding. He had gone into action. Alone. Silent. But always watching. Always fighting. Always protecting. The Watcher, beyond Neptune. Far beyond the reach of Earth, near the edge of known space, a small ship drifted, silently through the stars. Inside, Elias checked his navigation console. His next stop was a distant moon orbiting a gas giant, a place where a distress signal had been sent weeks ago. No one else was coming, so he would. He adjusted his course, leaned back, and looked out the window. Stars stretched endlessly before him. He wasn't chasing glory. He wasn't seeking revenge. He was doing what he always did, standing between danger and those who couldn't fight it, because that's what humans did. They protected. They rose. They endured. Even when no one was watching, especially Then years passed. The stars still burned, Earth still turned. And humanity, they kept rising. After the Battle of Sol, peace didn't come all at once, but something changed. The galaxy had seen what humans could do, not just with weapons, but with heart. They didn't just fight to survive. They fought to protect, to inspire, to lead. And now, their legacy stretched across the stars. A statue on Mars. A quiet Martian morning, dust swirled through the air like whispers of the past. At the edge of Valley's Ridge stood a new statue, tall, proud, timeless. It showed two figures. One was kneeling, the other rising. At its base, engraved in bold letters, "From loss came strength. From silence came heroes. From earth came the will to protect the stars." People came from across the colonies to see it. Soldiers, scientists, children, even aliens who had once feared humanity now looked upon it with respect. Lyra stood before it, alone. She placed a small stone at its feet, the kind Elias used to carry during training missions. "You'd have hated this," she said quietly. "Too much attention." But she smiled anyway, because he deserved it. Humanity's new dawn back on Earth, the United Terran Defense Fleet had grown into more than just a military force. It was now a symbol, a promise. Wherever danger rose, wherever voices cried out in the dark, human ships answered. Mars had become a center for diplomacy. Titan hosted research stations that studied alien tech, not for war, but for understanding. Even Luna had changed. No longer just a moon, it was now the home of the Interstellar Peace Council, where species from across the galaxy met to discuss cooperation. And every time a new alliance was made, one phrase echoed through the halls: united, unbroken. That was the sole standard. That was humanity, the man who walks the stars. Though Elias was gone, his name never faded. On Ceres Station, pilots still trained using his battle logs. On Europa, students learned about the commander, who returned from death and led humanity into a new age. And far beyond known space, near the edge of the void, stories spread among travelers and traders. They spoke of a lone ship, fast, silent, always appearing when help was needed most. Some called him a myth, others a ghost, but those who saw him, they knew better. He wasn't chasing glory. He wasn't seeking revenge. He was watching, waiting, protecting, because that's what humans did. A message across time. One day, Lyra received a message. No sender, no location. Just a short audio file. She played it. Static filled the room. Then a voice. Deep, calm, familiar. Tell them it was worth it. Just like his last words. Lyra closed her eyes. She didn't cry. She smiled. Because she knew Elias was still out there. Still fighting. Still making sure no one else had to face the darkness alone. The age of humanity was no longer just surviving. They were leading. They were exploring. They were protecting. And they weren't done yet. Across the solar system, new ships launched every week. Colonies grew stronger. Alliances formed. And every child growing up on Mars, Titan, or aboard a deep space station knew one thing. They were part of something bigger. They were human. And that meant something. Because humans. Fuck yeah. They fall. They hurt. They lose. But when they rise again, watch out, galaxy. Final words. In the end, the story of Elias and Lyra wasn't just about war. It was about hope, about courage, about the unbreakable spirit of humanity. And as long as there were stars in the sky and hearts willing to reach for them, humans would always be there, standing between danger and peace, between fear and hope, between silence and heroes. Because humans? Fuck yeah.